worth it.
Oh, yeah, buddy.
Juliana gave the Joplin a nudge toward the Nar this year with a subtle increase in travel, slightly more burly geometry, and the more aggressive lower link suspension. We took it and its twin brother, the Santa Cruz Tallboy, to Park City, Utah to test Juliana's claim that the new, far more capable Joplin still has some XC sensibilities.
So, Santa Cruz's new Tallboy. Santa Cruz says it's an XC bike for downhillers or gravity riders. Lydia, you're an actual cross-country racer in the flesh. Is it a cross-country racer's cross-country bike?
I think it depends on the course. For me, when I look for a cross-country bike, I'm looking for kind of a mean, raw, like edgy feeling bike, and I don't think this bike is it. But that being said, I think it is the right bike for almost every trail out there. It's so versatile and so lovely, and it climbs so well, and I feel like you don't really sacrifice much on the descents either.
Yeah, I mean, on the climbs, like as soon as I got on this bike, I was like, oh, I'm gonna motor up this thing.
Right.
And I did, like it
feels bright, it feels lively, it's like clean.
Yeah, and just like it's so comfortable in that seated position. I mean, we keep harping on steep seat tube angles. This has one, but it's way more than that because the suspension is super efficient. And it also, I found, just opens up really well over roots and rocks. Like you'll be seated and it'll just be moving and doing its thing and keeping traction and still pedaling well.
Yeah, my first thought on it was like, what a machine. Wow.
The miracles of engineering.
Yes, all of those things. And, finished the ride, went back out for some more.
Yeah.
I wanted more of it.
Yeah, I kept picking this bike for the extra credit rides.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's got a really nice short back end, and like you can pull up on the bars, and this thing will manual, and you can stuff it in turns.
Yeah, does it ever manual though, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I found that it likes to like carve turns a little more, I think, than just be pushed into them really sharply. But man, I mean, it's just like a natural feeling, fun bike. It's like a 65.5 degree head angle, I think. So it's
in the low setting, yeah, 65.
Yeah, in the low setting. So you can push it pretty hard.
Yeah, and it's worth noting it gained some travel compared to last year, which I think effectively distances it a little bit from the Blur and the Santa Cruz line. So it's definitely more of a trail option than an XC option. But I think it still handles mostly like an XC bike, at least when you're climbing. But then I was also just blown away by the seriousness of the terrain I was able to just mock on this bike.
It's just so beautiful down the trail.
Yeah.
Yeah, it felt like you could sort of drop your heels and just like sort of slash through things in a way that you just don't expect to be able to do on a bike like this.
Yeah, I was really like using my heels a lot, like just like pumping this bike a lot more than I usually do.
It doesn't have to be a downhill thrasher though, which is what I like about it. Like it's still fun and nimble, and like I could ride this on really mellow trails and still have a great day.
It has me questioning, like, I mean, the Hightower's big brother, right? A bit more travel. Does it have that much more ability? I'm not sure. This one is really stinking good.
Yeah, to me it comes down to like it's about like which direction I want to push myself in, right? Like if I want to have a bike and just do normal trail rides, but also maybe like race an enduro or two here or there, or do a couple days in the bike park throughout the season, then the Hightower is the way to go. But if I'm going the other direction and maybe I want to do a couple cross-country races or a couple like 50-milers throughout the season, then for sure it's going to be the Tallboy.
Yeah,
or
it's a big long epic.
Or a stage race, yeah. Like you would take it for the Breck Epic. I've done the BC bike race a bunch of times. I would take this. I might actually take this bike next year, the BC bike race again.
Yeah, so we talked about this, and I think that, yeah, it's maybe not necessarily the bike you would take if you're like really pinning it and trying to like win, right?
Yeah.
But if you want to be comfortable and aggressive and fast and have a really good time, I think this is a great option. It's a bike that will suit a lot of riders, and I think that you'll be surprised at how versatile and plush this amount of travel feels on a variety of terrain.
Yeah, it tied for me on the climb. So we've talked about this before. Our our short travel slash cross country loop had a lot of roots in it. It was a technical climb, and this one tied for me as the best climb up. Most comfortable. I didn't feel slower. In fact, I challenged Ferentino to a race on the top fuel. If he's in, yeah, I'm like,
Because
I feel that confident. I do.
it makes you want to do that, right?
Yeah.
Like I finished a lap on this bike and I kind of put the screws to the photo crew a little bit because I felt like I could.
Yeah.
And it was not very nice of me because they're carrying like 40-pound packs, but you know, rude. It was rude, but it makes you feel a little rude, which I think is the mark of a good fast bike.
Is there anything that we, you know, any holes that we could find in it, you know, as far as spec, price, any of those things, right?
I mean, you know, I love Santa Cruz's new suspension layout. It makes the bike really like, it's just low slung, it's compact. I think it even improves the handling a little bit, in addition to all the nice ride characteristics you get out of it. The one disadvantage to it is that the sag zone of the shock is like inside the seat tube. And with these Fox shocks, there's no gradient like there is on a RockShox shock. So it's like near impossible to tell what your sag is. Thankfully, Santa Cruz has a pretty thorough guide online for setting this bike up, and I found it to be pretty spot on. So you just...
I did too, yeah. I went directly off of their recommendations on the website, and I didn't make any adjustments to it. It felt really good.
Yeah.
You guys were talking a little bit about the crank length as well, right?
That's a solid point. You know, they do have a low bottom bracket. A high tower specifically runs a 170 on a large. This has a 175 on a large. Both John and I agreed, you know, we're not out trying to win races or might not miss that extra 5 millimeters of leverage, and I might be going to a 160 on this, just so I...
You mean 170?
Yeah, sorry. 60, 170. So I don't have to be so conscious of where those cranks are all the time.
Yeah.
We will ration cranks.
Yeah, and the medium comes up with a 170, which I felt fine with.
Yeah, you know, it's an $8,000 bike we have behind us. It's got the CC frame, carbon wheels, exo build, and it's not super light. Right?
Yeah, 29 and change.
Yeah.
Right, was our large.
29 and change.
Which, I mean, it's lighter than most trail bikes these days, but yeah, you've got to assume the lower end builds are going to be a couple pounds more.
Yeah.
Which, you know, that's a heavy bike for such short travel. But you know, it's not an XC bike anymore. It's really a short travel trail bike.
I think it gains.
Oh yeah.
And you have to say that it carries the weight well,
For
right?
sure,
Like you don't feel like you're pedaling a 30-pound bike when you're going up a hill. It feels like it's snappy and light, and then you feel like you're reaping all the benefits of having like a stable planted bike on the way down.
Yeah, you keep that weight low, which it is. Man, good things happen.
Good things happen.
It didn't pass muster as a full-on XC steed, but was plenty fast, impressively fast even for those of us who don't ever go between the tape. And since it no longer has to be for those who do, this version of the tallboy can be for everyone else. The stage racer, the trail rider, and yeah, the downhiller. We've got its full review and the rest of the Bible Bike Test videos at bikemag.com.